Hi, and welcome to That's My Purse Pod, the podcast all about King of the Hill. I'm Jason.
And I'm Jimmy.
So, as always, we are going to update you on our week and probably have some bizarre conversations about it for the first 10-15 minutes. So, Jimmy, what were you up to this week?
Okay, well, this week's a lot of small things have happened. So, I don't know if our listeners know. I know you know. I'm a big enamel pin collector. I collect a lot of enamel pins. And not just like Disney ones, but it's kind of that sense. Anytime I go to a convention, I end up with a whole bunch of pins. I think at this time of recording, I am roughly around, it's either in the 900s or 1,000 pins that I have. And what I did, I know, you gave me a lot. But what I did was I took one of my walls and I put a whole bunch of cork boards on it. And I've been putting the pins on there. Well, this week, a couple of the boards fell off the wall.
No.
They got too heavy. The pins were too heavy. So I had to take off. I took off all the boards because I didn't want them all falling down. And I've been, do you know like that, like the soundproofing kind of squares that they sell on Amazon? It's like little cork squares that you can put on your wall to soundproof it for studios.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of those, and I've been slowly putting them on my wall, and I'm putting the pins back up. But now that they're like smaller squares, I'm hoping like the weight is more distributed. Instead of one cork board holding like 200 pins, like one square can hold like 30-ish pins or something like that. So I've been slowly rebuilding, slowly putting my pins up. If you ever see me or ever try to give me a gift, enamel pin is always like the greatest. I like putting them on my bags and stuff. So that's kind of, I don't know what else I do this week. I did the other thing. I watched Marvel Zombies. I know we've already talked about Marvel Zombies before earlier this week. But I did watch that. I recommend everyone watch Marvel Zombies. But other than that, I don't know. Just those two things. And then work, same old.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah. But what about you? What have you been up to this week?
Well, first on the pins, do you have a King of the Hill pin or any King of the Hill pins?
I have one King of the Hill pin, and now I want to go see, because I know someone gave it to me because he had two different pins, and one was Peggy, and she was saying like something like "Me llamo Peggy" or something like that, and then the other one was Bobby, but I don't know if he was saying "That's my purse," but I believe maybe it is. I think I had the Bobby one. He's saying "That's my purse" because that is a classic Bobby quote.
Mm-hmm. They even make a reference to it in this episode, indirectly or directly, depending on how you choose to see it.
But yeah, I don't know. But not enough King of the Hill pins. Okay, now I'm going on a tangent. This does make me sad because, so at Comic-Con this year, there was a King of the Hill activation, which I did give it a bad review. But one of the things was there was a ring toss game, and you go in groups of 5, and you would all do ring toss, and whoever got the most rings would win a pin set. And that pin set was King of the Hill pins, and I did not win, so I don't have that set. But I was very jealous of people who did win, because as you know, I do love King of the Hill, and I love pins, but I don't know. I haven't looked at see how much it is on eBay, but I don't know. I don't like playing a lot for things that were free.
Fair enough. For my week, I did get a King of the Hill Funko Pop, so that was cool. Largely just Hank Hill, though they made one of all 4 guys. I only just have the Hank one, though, so that was fun. I fell trying to put it on a shelf, so that was fun, too. I'm fine. My ankle was sore for a few days, but overall I was fine, and just kind of a lesson learned not to do stupid stuff like that again. Let's see, what else did I do? Got flu shot, which not the high point of my week, but it was something I was going to do since it is flu season, and I do not like being sick. I never have reactions to shots other than a sore arm. Like that's about it. So I guess I consider myself lucky in that area. Other than that, it was a pretty mundane week. I started playing the new Silent Hill game, which I think it's back to form. The past few new releases of Silent Hill, I specifically say new releases because there was a remake of Silent Hill 2 last year that was actually really good, but it's a remake. It's not the original, or it's not an original game, a remake of a game. So the other games that were original have left fans disappointed, and it almost felt like the series was kind of dead. This is definitely a return to form, so it's really good. If you have high tolerance to scary games, then I would recommend you play it. If you don't, then do not.
Is it scary, or like, is it just creepy scary?
It is, I will say it is stress inducing, like even to me. And I'm a guy who loves horror movies, who is generally speaking never bothered by horror movies. And even I, at some point, feel like I have to stop playing because it's just too stress inducing. It's hard to describe, but it is this thing where it's like, and maybe it's one of those things because since you are in control of the characters themselves, it seems a lot worse. But it is definitely unnerving to play it.
Ooh, okay. I've been my like all my feeds have been like people playing Silent Hill or just like tension moments in it. So I've been like, I don't know. Should I should I play it? I have a lot of games on my playlist now that I need to get through, but oh man. So you recommend it though.
Yeah, if that is the type of game you like, I absolutely recommend it. But if you are, you know, if you just don't have a high tolerance for scary games or scary stuff in general, then I wouldn't recommend it.
Mm,
No, that's how I will put it.
okay, I might get it, play it. I might stream it. I just set up my stream too, so maybe I can stream it.
Yeah, I'm planning on streaming. So tomorrow, Final Fantasy Tactics Ivalice Chronicles or Ivalice Chronicles. So essentially the remake of Final Fantasy Tactics. I don't know if it's classified as a remake or a remaster. I'm gonna go ahead and call it a remake because I do think that they built completely new assets for it. That comes out tomorrow, and then Ghost of Yotai comes out on Thursday. So I plan on streaming Ghost of Yotai.
Nice. Okay, yeah, send a mess thing out when you stream. I'll check it out.
Will do. So yeah, I don't do a lot of streaming. I did stream when I played Tales of Arise, and this is maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Whenever that came out, I streamed that. And that's the last game that I did full streaming of. And I think I streamed another game, but I pretty much streamed my entire session of playing Tales of Arise.
Okay, I might have to check. I might have to check it. I don't. Streaming's always been difficult for me. At least I just don't have. It's the lighting. I feel like there's no good lighting in my little office area. So, and then I'm like, oh, should I be on camera? And it's all that stuff. But I do want to stream. You gifted me a game recently, Star Ocean. So I do want to play it. I think I want to stream it because it is a RPG. So it should be straightforward.
Yeah. And I think it's actually pronounced Ghost of Yote, so I
Mm,
just sound stupid.
I don't know. Well, I mean, you could go back and edit it yourself.
Nah, I'm gonna own this one. Yeah, well, I'm now dating a Japanese girl, so she's probably gonna correct all my pronunciation on, like, random Japanese things that I mispronounce, so
Mm. As long as she does it in the comments, that's fine. Because that's engagement for us and that helps us.
that's true. That's true. I'm sure I pronounce a lot of things incorrectly in Japanese, so and I'm fine with that. Like, I'm learning.
I think it's about I think it's about confidence. When you mispronounce words, if you're very confident in it, people are like, okay, well, we're just going to roll with this.
That's true. I would not be able to work a robotic chain because I'd probably get used to speaking the Japanese, but the Japanese menu, but in general,
Your hours would be horrible, though.
true. Yeah, restaurant hours are notorious. Well, you've worked in the biz. You know better than anybody on this podcast.
Yeah, but I mean, but Robotachan restaurant hours. There's like what, 4 employees?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, like, you guys are working opening to closing every
Mhm.
day.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I guess on that note, you wanna jump into the episode?
I guess. I mean, I feel like that's why we're here. That's why people are here for it,
Yeah, let's do it.
right?
So, this episode is No Hank Left Behind, and it is episode 9 of this new season. I think it is very timely, and King of the Hill's always kind of been that way, at least in the later seasons, especially where they would make fun of or kind of satirize, if you will, pop culture. Not just pop culture in terms of things that are on TV and trends and stuff like that, but pop culture in terms of like things that are actually going on in society and things. So this is gonna the Hank story, or I guess you can consider that the A story, is going to deal a lot with that. Instead of wasting time, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the episode starts at a lawyer's office, and we see Hank, good Hank, and Junichiro, though Junichiro isn't in the building. He is actually, Junichiro's like on a Zoom call. The lawyer is saying that they won $5,000 from a class action lawsuit against the Shin Jelly Company. And apparently that Shin Jelly was only lotion and hot sauce. So it doesn't really do anything. What's funny because when he's saying the names, he says good Hank, and he's like, wait, so does that imply that you're bad Hank? And then Hank's like, no, it's just Hank. I like how Hank's like, when he's talking about the Shin Jelly, he's like, I told Cotton it was a complete waste of money, but then Cotton told me that I was a complete waste of money, which is absolutely something Cotton would say.
What's her name? Was it Didi?
Didi.
Yeah, and Didi was like, we thought the burning was me, like, was a sign that it was working because of the hot sauce.
Yep. That was funny. Like, so, and he talks about this. If you watch the seasons, all the seasons, he talks about the Shin Jelly all the time. So I do like how this ties back to the original seasons because, apparently there was a class action lawsuit because the Shin Jelly didn't work. It was just lotion and hot sauce. And now that, Cotton's dead, his offspring get split the $5,000. In the elevator, Hank is trying to get going. He doesn't want to really engage with Didi or good Hank, so he's just trying to like, push the button, get it to come there. And GH is, he's a teenager, which honestly is a very big continuity error to me. It looked like he was under 1 years old when the series ended, and then now he's like a teenager, but it's only an 8-year time skip. So what happened? But anyway, so Didi mentions that GH needs a fatherly figure, which I guess means that the rich guy that she married or hooked up with or whatever didn't work out. Hank has no desire to like be that guy, but she's trying to insinuate that Hank should be that guy. As they get off the elevator, he sees Peggy and he's just like, okay, just keep walking, don't look back. But then Didi reaches out to Hank and it's like, hey, can GH stay with you a bit over the summer? And Hank's like, I'm not interested in doing that. And he's like, I want to be with somebody who remembers when quarterbacks stayed in the pocket. But Peggy ultimately convinced Hank to do it because it'd be the right thing to do. And he is his brother. And Hank's like, okay, I'll do that. But if he's my brother, then that means that Dee Dee's your mother in law. At Robota Chain, Bobby is busy prepping for Dallas Food Week, and Peggy is calling, wanting him to join for pickleball, and Bobby's just way too busy. Like, running a restaurant is not easy. Min then says, oh, did your son abandon you again? And Peggy's like, oh, they're getting older, and you know what happens. They just don't have a lot of time for their parents. And Min is like, oh, I talk to Connie all the time. And Peggy's like, oh, well, she's a girl, so that's different. Then Nancy's like, oh, Joseph and I talk all the time too, which kind of makes Peggy feel a little bad. But Peggy holds her own quite well doing pickleball because it's 2-on-1. And Min, of course, has to be Min. It's like, oh, it's no fair. Her hips are so wide, she covers more space. While Peggy's playing, she falls and injures her knee badly, and she needs to see a doctor. And Peggy's like, oh, does anybody know an orthopedic? And Nancy's like, I mean, I do, all the way up in Dallas. And so she decides to use this opportunity to go out to Dallas and catch up with Bobby.
I love when she calls Bobby and he's like, I can't make it to pickleball. And it's because I guess whatever system they have to like for events for the restaurant, Emilio is in charge of, and he like there's no clear communication between them because what was it like? Food Week was supposed to be next week, but it's actually this week. And Bobby's like, "Well, I can go up there next week," and then Emilio gives him this look like, "No, you can't do that." He's like, "Oh, we need a better system than this."
Yeah. Whatever system they're using isn't working. I like how Peggy was still able to play the pickleball by herself and still score against Min and Nancy on a 2-and-1. Of course, Peggy's built a bit differently, so that helped, but then she did injure herself, and that injury looked pretty bad.
Oh yeah, their faces when they looked at her injury was like you were expecting bone to be showing.
Yeah. And then, of course, their other story with Hank being asked to be the fatherly figure. And I guess Hank is, and you see it often. Once you're an empty nester, you don't want to start over again with new kids. So there are some people who do, but generally speaking, when you're like, okay, we did our job, we did our 18 years getting that kid done and done raising kids. And so I think Hank's kind of in that thing where he's like, I don't need another teenager in my life.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you see GH and kind of how he is now, he's just very like he's glued to his phone, but like in like a disrespectful way. I don't know if that makes sense. Where it's like he doesn't pay any attention to Didi. It's not like he sets it down for a little bit. It's just like I don't know. It feels like more than zombie teenager kind of thing, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And I just think I mean if GH was like into repairing things or I feel like there was no common ground for him and Hank. Which I'm also like, did Hank never? Do they not visit each other ever? They're not like far from each other.
I have no idea. I think it's implied in the one episode. I forget the name of the episode, but it's the one where they flush
Cons,
Cotton's
yeah.
ashes down the toilet and whatnot. It's strongly implied that Dee Dee's just kind of moved on from all of it, and she didn't really want to have anything to do with the hills at that point. So that's my guess.
Mm. I don't know. Yeah, I just think like GH seems like an annoying teen, and that's not, that's not especially what you want. I know that they're kind of bored, Hank and Peggy, with the retiring life or trying to figure it out still, but to have GH there and just kind of, it's not their style. And yeah, they don't need to be like, Hank doesn't need to raise another child or like, he doesn't have the energy or the patience to like raise a child. And I don't even think Bobby was this bad.
No,
So yeah, but it is what it is, I guess.
that's the only way to look at it. But hey, at least he's going to help out and be a strong fatherly influence for GH, or at least try to. Back at the alley, Hank's with the guys, and he's actually talking about, hey, at least with Bobby, he was doing his prop comedy and stuff. All GH does is spend a lot of time in the room by himself. And, Bill says, oh, well, GH is probably spending time, shaking hands with the milkman. And Hank's obviously upset about that. And he says, that's not something hill men do. I never did. And then Dale, of course, is like, I did. I did it to that woman in the Zapruder film, which is exactly something I would expect Dale to say. We skip quickly over to the hospital, and Peggy says she's going to make spaghetti and meatballs for Bobby. And she's like, oh, I made it even better. Like, instead of doing a little bit of sugar, I put in the perfect amount of sugar. And of course, Bobby's like, yeah, I got to get back to the restaurant. Joseph will drive you back to Arlen. And, everything's so busy. And then, of course, Emilio is texting back and forth. And he's like, Emilio just texted me with 4 explanation points. What does that even mean? I'm going to reply with 4 question marks. Hank goes to GH's room and, knocks on the door and sees him and is like, what you are doing is natural, but it sets unrealistic expectations. Most repairmen won't accept anything but money, which is actually, I don't know if you remember the show Robot Chicken. I think it's still on the air. I haven't watched it in a while, but one of the very, very early seasons had one where it was Conan O'Brien as the clueless pizza guy. So he goes to deliver pizza, and the woman, the very attractive blonde, opens the door and is like, "Oh, I don't know how I'm ever gonna pay for this." And he's like, "Well, cash will be just fine." And then she's like, "Oh, I just don't have any cash." "Well, we accept all major credit cards." So I don't know. For some reason, that just remember unlocked that memory for me. Then GH is like, "I'm not looking at, adult material. I'm looking at personal development opportunities." And there's this website called Man Made, and you have this guy who is clearly meant to be some kind of parody of Andrew Tate. And he's talking about how, oh, all men need the four F bombs: family, faith, finances, and fitness. And, we can help turn you into a real man and stuff. And on the surface, Hank thinks this sounds great and would be great for, GH. He needs strong manly advice, and this might be exactly what he needs. And GH says, "Well, I'd like to go, but boys under 18 can't do it unless they have a mentor." And Hank agrees to be the mentor, but he's like, "I don't know why they need to call it that when mentors, works just well." Yeah, this is going to be in one of those episodes because you'll see as we go through it, you're going to see a lot of what they're talking about. And basically, what's the word I'm looking for? So nowadays we have kind of a problem. You can read all about it online and stuff like that, and not even just online, but different articles and people have talked about it, where there's a bunch of men, young boys, I should say, or young men, who are lost in modern society and they don't know how to thrive. And unfortunately, when you have this kind of a vacuum out there, it's fertile ground for some greedy grifters to do some, let's just say, not savory things. And I think this is what this is trying to allude to here. And you'll see more of that in the episode.
I just I find it funny. Like Hank is like, oh, this is exact. I guess those f bombs do kind of lean into more of Hank's kind of stuff. Like when you kind of look at it, unobjectively, you're like, oh, what was it? Family, faith, finance, and fitness. And those in Hank's eyes are like, oh, these are positive things. These are like what your life should be based off of. So I thought that was funny. I do like what was it? Mentor? You need a mentor,
Yeah,
and then like, but then the other like it's a mentor. Like even if you wanted to put the spin on like the guy's spin on it, it's like still men.
still works.
Yeah, it's mentor. So right now, I just like thought about that, but in the show, I was like, I didn't get the idea. I didn't. The joke didn't hit me when I watched the episode about mentor and mentor being the same thing. I just thought Hank was like, mentor was already a good word. Like, why do we need to change it? Because Hank is also very like, we don't need to be messing with things that are already working.
Yep, he's very straight laced like that.
Also, do you think it's more sugar or less sugar in the spaghetti, or was it
Peggy.
Peggy and meatballs?
I'm gonna go with more sugar.
Okay.
So at the hospital, Peggy is getting ready to do an MRI, and she's like, "Oh, my son will get me back to Arlen before I know it." And as she gets into the MRI, she starts to have a panic attack, and so the doctor's like, "We're gonna have to reschedule you for tomorrow." I don't know if that's normally what happens with MRIs. I do know that claustrophobia in MRIs is incredibly common, but I believe they usually just give you like a Xanax or something to help with that, like or some kind of sedative. I don't know that they just tell you, "Oh, you have to come back tomorrow when you're going to be less panicked." I mean, maybe they do. I've never had an MRI, but I've known people who have, and they always told me, "Oh, they just take like they give you a Xanax or something like that to relax you beforehand if you're going to have problems with claustrophobia."
I never had an MRI either, so I don't know if they do or not. And then like I do understand like sometimes you don't realize you have that kind of it's I feel like it's different being in that machine. I've never been in one again, but like what I see in TV and movies is like you're totally trapped in that little area.
Mhm.
So I gotta understand having a panic attack. Man, I can't even speak today. Panic attack in there.
Yes. Well, so since she's gonna have to stay overnight and come back tomorrow, she's gonna stay with Bobby. think when she sits down on the couch and there's like an end table, Joseph covers stuff up. It looked like it might have just been a cigarette, but then at the same time, it's like, why would he cover that up? Like, that's not illegal or anything. So I'm like, maybe it's weed. I don't know. Uh, it didn't look like a joint, but maybe I don't know. Maybe I need to take a better look. Anyway, they noticed this pencil like in a box, and Peggy's like, "Oh, what's that?" It's like, "Oh, that's part of our game, Red Dead Redemption." It's the game they made up where you take a pencil and you try to use your pencil to break somebody else's pencil, and so all of a sudden, Bobby and Peggy and Joseph are playing the game, and of course, Peggy is just whooping everybody. Even she even manages to break a whole bundle of pencils with her pencil. So hey, there's a little bit of bonding going on. At Man Made, as Bobby and Hank are arriving, they see this guy dress up in like an oversized shirt, pretending to be a nerdy guy, and he's like, "Oh, is this the conference or whatnot?" And he's like, "Oh." Yeah, the leader, who's named Eli, who's clearly like an Andrew Tate ripoff, is like, "Oh, well, this is a weak man, but men, we have to take care of the weak men and whatnot." And of course, the guy throws off the shirt and realizes that, oh, he's part of the man-made thing too. So it's all just kind of a act, I guess. And Hank's like, "Oh, this is clever marketing, but unnecessary." And it's funny because they do all this random stuff, which at first I think Hank was fine with. It's like boot camp type stuff, like push-ups and running through mud and all that stuff. And that's to Hank, that's fine. That's acceptable. And they talk about how, if you give up, you need to ring the bell of defeat. Okay, so this part is pretty normal, all right. So then they go into a conference room and they kind of do the, I guess, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call it the emotional work. And so they say, "Oh, we're all in financial trouble because we're all either working for a woman or a beta. We should work for ourselves, not another man, and we should build your entrepreneurial spirit." And Hank's like, "Excuse me, I worked for Buck Strickland for many years and he was no beta." And of course, Eli pushes him off on that. And so Eli gives everybody a fake $5 bill. It says, "Okay, you have 1 hour to pitch a business and turn your $5 into $20." And so Hank kind of thinks it's dumb. And of course, he tries to sell propane and that doesn't go over. And then GH tries to sell some, I guess, gaming skins, but Hank doesn't understand. It's like, "Oh, if you're going to only sell the skins for 250, I wonder how much the meat goes for." So yeah, this is, if you've spent any time on the internet, you're going to hear a lot of people talk about alpha males and beta cucks and chads and all that stuff. And honestly, it is stupid. Like, there's no other way to describe it. All of that stuff is just dumb. It's not based in science. The understanding of alpha wolves and whatnot came from a poorly done study of wolves in captivity and whatnot. But you still see all these people who subscribe to this idea of, "Oh, you're just a beta male and you're an alpha male and whatnot." And actually, it's kind of interesting in common like Gen Z or Gen A slang. There's this idea of like a sigma, and it's basically a person who just goes their own way. They don't subscribe to being an alpha or beta. So I think that's kind of interesting that, people are just kind of breaking away from this stupid thing that kind of millennials and Gen Z and maybe to some extent Gen X came up with. But yeah, we're starting to see that some of this is going on where they're talking about, "Oh, a woman or a beta, they're the reason you're suffering." And that's what a lot of these weird manosphere things do, is that they start to say, "Oh, the reason why your life sucks is because, weaker men are out there ruining your lives." Or almost all the time, they will blame women for ruining your lives. So Hank's going to have some problems with that. So you'll see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I really okay, like I love that Hank is such a good hype man for GH though. Cause GH is trying to make that sale with like I guess it's like their world's Fortnite or PUBG or whatever. And he's trying to sell the skins or help the guy like some kind of game tutoring or something like that. And then Hank puts aside like him trying to make his own money. He's like, "Oh, that's really cool." And then he makes a comment about like, "Yeah, that's just for the skins and like how much is the whole body or something like that." I like that he's helping GH out. Um, I do love the little skit thing that they had before they go into the thing when they're kind of just all outside the building, and then that nerdy guy comes out, and and then they're like, Eli's like making fun of him, and he's like, "No, wait, guys, but we should really help this guy." He's like, "But do you know the 4 F bombs?" And he's like, "Yeah, they're was it faith, family, finance." And then he rips off his shirt and he's like really jacked. He's like, "Fitness."
Yep.
I do like that Hank Out Loud was like, "Oh, this is like part of the show," or something. So like, "Oh, that was a clever thing to do." And then I just, I don't know. I really hate all that stuff. It's so annoying. But it's funny that I think what makes all of this tolerable is Hank is there, and it's like Hank is thinking what we're all thinking about, like this these kind
Yeah.
of, I don't want, like, people who subscribe to this way of thought is, I think, the
Hmm.
best way of saying it. So I do love that Hank is like voicing all our opinions of it all. And then, oh man, I do think those were cigarettes though. I think Joseph was trying to just like clean up the area, or maybe it's kind of because we see him smoking with his dad or with Dale, his dad,
Hmm.
in that one episode. So, but I don't know. We don't really see him smoke anywhere any other time. I don't believe.
No, that's a good call out.
So I don't know if he's just kind of like cleaning up the area, or like, oh, it's Bobby's mom's here. I gotta make it look a little more presentable. So, but I do love when she wants to play, and he's like, "Well, you got to bring your own number two pencil, or it has to be wooden," is what he said, I believe. He's like, "It has
Yep.
to be wooden," and then she pulls out her own pencil, and that's pretty cool. I like how she kind of rallies everyone together again, and because Bobby's like about to go to bed or something like that. Like Bobby's like, "Well, I'm gonna go to sleep," or the night's gonna end short, and then he's like, "We'll go to the hospital in the morning." And then she does the pencil thing, and like Bobby's like, "Well, we got to keep going. If this," he's like, "You can't be unchallenged as the like winner." So I really like that him and Peggy are getting the chance to bond, and she's like, "Still cool, mom."
Yeah. Very true. Peggy's back at the hospital. She's trying to get to the elevator, and it's funny because she's yelling at the doctor, and the doctor, I don't know if the doctor's actively ignoring her or if the doctor's just kind of like really into whatever it is she's reading. But she doesn't hold the elevator. Peggy manages to get her crutch into the elevator and get in. But then she starts to have another panic attack and starts singing Enya's Sail Away, and she passes out. So the doctor's like, we're going to have to reschedule you for tomorrow. At Man Made, they're in another kind of boot camp where they're being physical, but there's men dressed up with shirts like sugar, alcohol, and debt, and this is supposed to represent things you're supposed to avoid. GH wants to give up, but Hank helps, and he helps GH climb one of those rope wall type things, and all the guys cheer them on, but Hank doesn't want to hug because, of course, he doesn't. And then, of course, now they have this thing called the Nads of Truth, and it's just like two clacker balls. And it's like, oh, if you want to talk, you need to be holding these. And so they pass around it's kind of a talking circle or group session, if you will. And so they pass the Nads around, and one guy's like, I'm too short. Every woman tells me that. And then the next guy's like, my ex wife says I don't make enough money. And then, so Eli's like, yeah, it's a woman's problem. Yeah, it's a woman's problem. And then the next guy's like, people don't get my jokes. And it's like, well, who's the ones who tell you that? It's like everyone. And who makes up slightly more than half of everyone? Women. Yeah. So it's women's fault. Then Hank's getting kind of upset because they're blaming all their things on women. And GH is like, oh, I'm struggling because I can't get past the friend zone on this girl. And, Hank's trying to, be actually a good mentor and says, you need to learn how to respect her decision. If she wants to be friends, that's fine. He's like, Hank's like, I'm the only one who has a wife, so you guys should be listening to me. But then everybody is just kind of insulting Hank because they're kind of in this mindset. And then GH starts insulting Hank, but then Hank starts flashing back to Cotton calling him names. So it's funny and sad and kind of disturbing that GH is actually mirroring Hank in this way.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I think GH is like that just because of like, if he's at this boot camp, he must already know, like, he must be following Eli on YouTube or whatever. Whatever the
Yeah.
equivalent is. Is it YouTube still in that world?
I think I've seen them use YouTube in that world before.
Okay, because I remember Bobby was uploading something or what. But yeah, so I mean, of course he's like gonna lash out at Hank, and I'm sure. No, wait, because Con passed. Yeah, he really didn't really was raised by Con. I don't know that it was weird that lashing out the all the things he's calling Hank, but then
Yeah,
he never really grew up with Cotton, so he didn't really hear all that. I don't know. Maybe when he was like a in the womb, I guess. But
maybe.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. All that stuff is frustrating, but it is like I do enjoy the Nads of Truth. Is that what it's called again? The Nads of Truth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do love the Nads of Truth. I've already suggested it to Jason that that is our next cosplay for D23 will be the Nads of Truth.
I mean, it is a Disney property, so
Yeah.
we'll be in line.
So also that doctor, are we into like that doctor is like the worst?
Yep.
And that's supposed to be like Nancy's like that's the best or that's the doctor I know.
Yep.
I just mean like uh she seems like she doesn't have time. So she's like, we gotta reschedule for the next. How many times are they gonna also I've never like anytime I've had a schedule with a doctor, like it's not like they have so many openings in the like time. So to be able to reschedule back to back to back the next days,
Yeah, like, there's nobody else using the MRI to where
it's
there's just open spots to reschedule for the next day?
yeah, just like we're not even gonna attempt this. I don't know if that's a rule. Like if the person passes out that day, you can't. But then aren't you supposed to put people who are injured in MRI machines?
Yeah.
I don't know. This doctor, I I mean, Peggy could do better.
I think it's just for the plot, to be
I know,
honest, like, to make the plot make sense.
but
But, yeah,
still,
in real world, it makes no sense.
but yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, poor Peggy. I feel so bad for Peggy.
Yep. Well, back at the apartment, Peggy shows up with a fresh box of pencils to play Red Dead Redemption, and Bobby's too busy working on sauces for the restaurant week, and Joseph is asleep on the couch, and it's funny because he's just talking in his sleep. He's like, "Oh, baby, wait, don't scare me, girl." Bobby is looking and sees that his shrimp guy called, but he missed that call. Then he notices that he has a bunch of missed calls and missed texts from his mom, Peggy. So, he's kind of starting to feel guilty. Peggy all of a sudden drops a pencil under the bed and she's trying to get to it, but she can't. And so she grabs the skateboard, lies down on it. She rolls under the bed to get the pencil. And at first, Bobby is worried. It's like, oh, that's very similar to MRI machine. We don't need you having another panic attack, but she is just fine. And so Bobby kind of puts two and two together and realizes, oh, part of the reason she's having the panic attack is maybe a psychological thing. So back at Man Made, Hank wants to talk to Eli, and Eli is like, "Oh, I apologize, GH. I led you astray." Eli's like, "What you should do is go to that girl and ask out all of her friends to make her feel worse." And he's like, "Yeah, and then maybe she'll fall for me." He's like, "Nah, you should make her think she's dating you while you're all hitting on all the people." And Hank's just had it, and so he rings his bell and wants to take GH, and it's like, "Oh, only simps give up." And so Hank does what he does, and he calls Dale and he asks Dale if he can do a background check on people. And Dale automatically assumes that he means Peggy. So he pulls out a folder of all the information he collected on Peggy. And Hank's like, no, I need you to do a lookup on this guy, Eli. And I also need you to destroy all the information you have on Peggy. And so Dale's like, yeah, sure. And then he pretends to put the paper into a shredder, even going as far as making the noise. But he's really just putting it all back in the cabinet.
That is one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite parts of this episode. And I don't know why I was surprised when Dale pulls out a giant file on Peggy. He's got to have one on everyone, right?
Of course. Yeah.
And it's just like, I love when he's like putting it back. He's like, "Zzz, zzz." But it is, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool that like Hank's like, okay, it's time to pull in the like big guns. I got to call Dale, get the
Yep.
dirt on Eli. I wonder what Dale I feel like it's so easy to underestimate Dale, but then he's like really good at these things, like finding out stuff on people. He's like, what is it? The beer competition, and he dug up
Yep.
all that. Like he found all that intel on the judge.
Yep.
So he's like really good at all this stuff. So, you know, I don't know. Does that outweigh him bugging your house? Dale's
No, and I feel like at this point Hank is just used to it.
So I did enjoy that, and I don't know. It's tough. I mean, it's tough when you're older and you're like now it's switching to the Bobby Peggy storyline, but when you're older and then it's like you're trying to balance your career, and then like your life is winding up, and then your parents' life is winding down. If that makes sense.
Yep.
And it's like, well, now I don't have any free time for you guys, and now you have all this. Now they have all this free time, and it's just like, oh, it's sad, and it's like you gotta find this balancing act though. So I feel for Bobby. Like I think we can all like us like in our 30s can relate to what Bobby's going through, and like
Yeah.
your family is important to you, but then you're like your life is starting to.
I mean that's true because he's really young to be running a business like this. So he's still, you know, most of us are barely adults at 21 years old. Like from a legal perspective, we are, but emotionally, mentally, we aren't. And yet Bobby is trying to successfully run a very real restaurant. And so, that's occupying all of his time. And because he's so young, I think Peggy's isn't quite yet ready to I don't want to say she's not ready to let go. She wants to spend time with Bobby, but she just doesn't, he's just too busy. It's not even that he doesn't care about her, he's just too busy.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the more we learn about Bobby and the restaurant, and how he has a stake in it, if the restaurant doesn't do well, he loses out a lot because he gave up like salary for like percentage of ownership of the restaurant. I'm sure he's at this point saying yes to everything, like every event and everything. He's like, yes, yeah, we just got to get out there. But then on the flip side, like Peggy's been gone for like, what was it, 5 years?
Something like that. I mean,
Yeah,
I
so,
know that there's been an 8-year skip. I don't remember how long they've been in
so
Saudi Arabia, yeah.
yeah, so I mean it's at least 3 years, 3 to 4. Man, it's a good chunk of time. Well, are we on current time? Like, is it 2025 in that world?
I assume so, unless they say otherwise.
So like all of COVID or like the pandemic time, the hills missed.
At least in terms of America, yeah, but
Yeah,
I'm
well, I
sure they
mean, like,
dealt with
yeah,
COVID.
but I mean, like, what was that? 2021, 2020? I don't know. I can understand Peggy wants to have this time to catch up with Bobby more than a normal parent would. And then Bobby's also like busy. It's just that weird like thing. And I do think it's sweet that Bobby is recognizing this though. Like it's not
Yep,
just going over his head. He had the like uh eyes open moment. His eyes were open to it.
exactly. So back at the hospital, Peggy gets in the MRI machine and she's nervous, but then Bobby shows up and talks to her through the microphone. And she is fine. Like, she is able to keep calm, and excuse me. So Bobby mentions that, like, oh, they're gonna do a mother-son lunch every Tuesday with a theme, menu inspired by Peggy's cooking, and she should come up once a week and check it out, and so she's relaxed and actually falls asleep in the MRI, and the doctor is surprised that Bobby was able to figure out that her panic attacks were psychosomatic, and by Bobby being present, she was able to relax. And it's funny, while looking at the MRI machine, she's like, huh, it looks like your mom has some scar tissue in the groin area, like she was kicked there by a 12-year-old. And Bobby's like, you could tell it was a 12-year-old. So that's the tie back to the that's my purse, I don't know you.
Wait, he hit her that hard?
I guess so.
I mean, it was full force in the episode. She did not flinch though.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, I guess it's just a nice callback. But yeah, I don't know that would leave scar tissue, or if she did, it would at least hurt. I mean, if she had scar tissue in her groin, I'd imagine it would have been from the time that she tried to do the fire person's carry on Bobby and pulled her groin. Like that would have made more sense to me, but It would have been less funny because of the whole "That's my purse, I don't know you" being, like, one of the top lines of King of the
Mm,
Hill.
very much so. One of my favorite lines. And I don't want to harp back on this doctor, but like, there wasn't a time where the doctor was like, maybe we should bring a family member in. Maybe that'll help you calm down or something. I don't know. I just think,
Well, the doctor mentioned when Bobby came in that it was against protocol, so maybe that just is not something the doctors do. Again, I've never done an MRI, so I have no idea.
as well as I haven't either. But I do think, like, I don't know. After the second time, like where Peggy faints in the, I don't know, but she got her MRI. Isn't that's what's the best at the end of the day? And then now they're gonna have that theme lunch. That's cool.
So that's gonna be a way for them to connect. It allows him to do his restaurant work, but then still connect with Peggy, so he managed to find a happy medium there.
Hmm.
Well, let's wrap up this whole man-made nonsense. So back at man-made, Hank walks in and you hear one of the guys saying, and that's why you should retain your semen, which I'm assuming is this No Nut November thing, which if you're not familiar with it, it's something on Reddit where people try to not masturbate through the month of November. Some people just do it as a random challenge. But there is a group of people who somehow believe that it gives you low level superpowers if you do that. So, whatever, I'm guessing that this is what he is referring to. Hank walks in. He points out that, yes, all these guys are mad because they have been shunned by women. Hank mentions that he had a talk with Eli's ex girlfriend, and Hank is holding the nads of truth. Eli keeps like interrupting Hank, and he's like, "Do these mean anything to you?" Because the rule is only the person with the nads of truth can talk. And he mentions that, the girlfriend mentioned that your mother actually owns Man Made. And the mother walks in, and mom's like, "I hope this would help you make new friends after you got your adult braces off." And apparently, she gave him like 50 grand or something to do all of this. And he's kind of pushing back and stuff. And he's like, "Well, if you don't fix this program, I'm going to take away my share." And so Eli then tries to use that as an example of how females ruin his life. And Hank's like, "Look, I have a wife, a mother, the propane driver. They're all women and they helped me get where I am." And then so the men start passing around the nads of truth and they start to have really insightful talks. Like the one guy who says women reject him because he's short, he's like, "Hey, you put down in your profile that you're 6'2". You can't be mad when women meet you and you don't meet that expectation." And then the other guy's like, "Hey, maybe your wife would be less mad if you didn't spend all your alimony payments from her on swords." And the other guy's like, "Yeah, my jokes are very misogynistic." And so everybody rings the bell and leaves, and Eli is upset that everybody is leaving, even his business partner is leaving. And it's funny because Eli trips and injures himself, and then GH rings the bell and says to Eli that he should ask his mom to buy a shirt that fits him and doesn't show his nips. And it's funny because as GH leaves, he's like, "We should buy something nice for our bitches." And Hank's like, "Well, we're making progress, I guess, but we still have work to do."
I mean, baby steps, right? you know,
Yep.
I do. Oh, as this episode's really good. I like it a lot. The Nads of Truth though. Like I love Hank just kind of grabs him. Hank is so cool when he busts through the door and he's got all the intel that Dale's giving him. And then he grabs the Nads of Truth. And then he's like, "Do these not mean what's it like? Does the Nads of Truth mean nothing to you?" Like what you said, I was like, that's so funny. It's so funny that Hank has allowed the Nads of Truth to have, like, they have the power because if you're holding on, you're the only person allowed to speak, and Hank respects the power that the Nads of Truth have, and it's just a silly thing because they're just two golden balls that I don't know. Can we? But he's holding the Nads of Truth. If you watch the episode, you'll know what they look like, and it's just funny, like that Hank is like, respect these. You got to respect that when someone's holding them.
Exactly. And I do like how they do. And again, I'm not trying to harp on this, but I do think it is timely because a lot of this stuff is happening nowadays. They harp on these men who are, rather than working on self improvement and being better or just being honest with themselves about their situation, they instead want to blame women for all of their problems in the world. Obviously, that is circular reasoning because if you're blaming women for everything, women aren't going to want to be around you. Like, who wants to be around somebody who's misogynistic? Which then kind of restarts the cycle where people are like, oh, women are shunning me, and this is why I'm not getting the job I want, and blah, 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 blah. And that doesn't help anything. But of course, stuff like what Eli's doing is a grift. It's not supposed to help you. It's supposed to make you think you're being helped. But then, after things don't work out, he'll say, oh, you just weren't trying hard enough. Come to my workshop again, and blah, blah, things like that. Hank was the man in this situation where he's like, hey, look, women have been good to me in my life. They have been helpful to me and whatnot. Not women, all women are bad. And then I like how the guys kind of own up to it, because this guy who says women are too short, well, hey, in his profile, he's saying he's 6'2". And if you're saying you're one thing and then somebody meets you and you're something different, of course they're not going to like you. And I've on both sides. This happens with both genders. Where like I've been on dating apps and I've seen, or I've been out with women who look nothing like their profile picture. And I'm sure I'm not a woman, so I've never searched for guys. So I don't know what that experience is like, but I'm sure there are guys who do the same thing, or spending alimony on swords. Like, yeah, if I were paying alimony to somebody and they were just spending it on stupid things, I'd be upset. And of course, why would a woman want to be around a guy who makes misogynistic jokes? So these guys are kind of insightful in realizing that they are kind of in the way of their own success. Nobody out there is keeping them away from the success they want except for themselves. And I've actually mentored some people like that in my past who have, they immediately complain when you tell them, hey, if you want a girlfriend or whatever, be the type of person that a girl wants to be around. Oh, I have to do self-improvement. That's not fair. Well, welcome to the real world. It doesn't matter where we're talking about dating, making friends, getting healthier, getting a job, but you're always wanting to self-improve. And I do like that Hank came in, exposed the guy for who he really was, because he, by his own definition, is kind of a beta because his mom is the one who financed everything.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, it is funny that like he's trying to pull his fast one, even over his mom. Like once she found out what the camp was really like, she was like, we gotta shut this down. You can't be talking this way about like women. And it is kind of, I do find it's a lot of like people just wanting to blame their life's problems on someone else. That way it's not their fault that these things are happening. It's like someone else's fault. And if someone can rally everyone against one person or one group of people, then yeah. So I'm really glad, like, and I always feel like Hank is the voice of reason in a lot of things. So I'm so glad that Hank was like, and it could have been so easy for Hank to kind of just be like, well, that's just GH's thing, and this is Didi's problem, and I'll never see GH again or whatever. But he was really like, no, I can't let this cycle, it's kind of like I can't let Cotton's negativity live on, in a sense. He's like, it stops here, it stops today, and we start growing and becoming better people.
Yeah, exactly, because Cotton is very misogynistic and blamed a lot of his problems on Tilly and other people. But yeah, so I do like that Hank was able to come in and really lay down the law here and make things better for GH and the other men. In the alley, they are at a car, and it's a very old, beat up car. And Didi shows up to pick up GH, and she's like, "Oh, this car looks like it has herpes." And Hank's like, "Well, we took his inheritance money to buy him a car, and this is going to be a long-term project for him to kind of build resilience, give him something to do, let us bond, that kind of thing." It's funny because Bill is like, "Oh, I hear that you're still available. Would you like to get together? And, I can write up a resume." And Didi's like, "Oh, I don't know how to read." And it's just funny to see her pass on Bill's advancement. And then Hank has this realization that he outlived Cotton, and, he's getting to raise GH to be a better man than Cotton. So he ultimately won, and the episode ends. So yeah, I ultimately liked this episode. At first, I didn't like it on first watch. Not that I disliked it. It felt weird. It had a weird vibe to me. Like, there's a lot of those episodes that to me have a weird vibe, even in the original run, like the Miss Wakefield episode or Pygmalion or Hank's Bully. But then on second watch, I was like, you know what? This is really good because it shows Hank really coming to the aid of his family and other people when he just sees somebody is clearly in the wrong and is doing more harm than good.
This episode, again, it's a solid one. It's really, there are moments I really love. Of course, the Nads of Truth is something I really love. And I kind of really love we get a deeper dive into Emilio and Bobby's relationship, like just how the scheduling is. Those are things I really liked about this episode. It's not going to be like my first go-to for a rewatch of the season. Like, I feel like at least you and I are at a point with King of the Hill where we don't kind of just go from point A to point B. Like, I don't start at episode 1 and I go through the full series. I kind of pick it, like, I go through seasons and I pick the episodes I like, or I kind of watch in random order. I mean, eventually, I'm probably going to rewatch this again in the regular order, but eventually I'm going to get to the point where I kind of just pick the episodes I like to watch. This one will be in the rotation, but it won't be like the top choices of episodes for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a good episode. It's better than a lot of episodes I've seen, quite frankly. Like I said, I mentioned some of my least favorite ones. I would not put it in like my top 50, but it is a great episode. I also like the B story with Peggy and Bobby building their bond because Bobby's busy and Peggy wants her son and they really should be together. And yeah, that Bobby was able to find a happy medium to make it work for both of them.
Yeah.
That is all I have. What about you?
Yeah, that's all I have. I just want to throw this out to Disney. Please make an Ads of Truth. We need them. I need like official license or Funko. Funko, make some Ads of Truth. Funko Pop.
I love that idea. If they make it, I will buy one.
So
well, until then, we actually have 2 more episodes. So we're going to review the last episode, episode 10, and then we'll do a retrospective. So until then, I am Jason.
And I'm Jimmy.
Bye.
Bye.